Hey everyone, thanks for coming to our talk today, and thanks for coming to Unite. My name is Steve Martinelli. I'm going to be talking about functions. We're going to be having fun with functions, is how I've liked to set, is the alternate title to this talk. All right, a little bit about me. My name is Steve Martinelli. I've been at Shopify for about a year now, and this is actually the second, I guess the first Unite that I've really been to, second stop. And I've met a lot of people here, a lot of different partners, and I'm just, always impressed by all the different things that the third-party developers and the partners and agencies are coming up and doing with Shopify. So, thank you for making me feel welcomed also as a bit of a newbie here. All right. So, like I said, we're going to be talking about functions today. We're going to start with a brief introduction about functions and what they solve, what kind of use case are we solving here, and then we're going to talk about how they solve it. And then I always like to do a deep dive into how you would actually kind of do this. So we're going to be building out a little function, simulating building a little function during this presentation here. Then we're going to wrap it up with some Q&A. All right, so in the keynote today, Dion mentioned that themes are one of the first things that merchants start to customize. And it's true. It's probably the easiest entry point to you customizing your store. Once you get it up and running, you can make a few tweaks to your theme. Looks really cool. Customize a little bit. Personalize your store. And it just looks really cool. And themes eventually became, now you can sell themes. We have the theme store. Became its own little ecosystem in there. And then eventually we were able to install apps to your store. And these apps filled critical gaps for merchants. They, in itself, created another ecosystem there of app developers, of both custom apps and public apps. I've listed a few out here, such as TapCart, Deliver, Checkout Promos by Gil, who should be here. I don't see him here right now, but I'll catch up with him later. And Joy Loyalty, just to name a few. So you can see here, now you can customize the front end, you can customize and fill some critical gaps in your back office, and then there's going to be, what's the next thing you want to do? You want to customize the logic of Shopify, some of the business logic of Shopify. And there's where functions kind of came in. This was a long desired feature. So again, with functions coming out, now you can customize the back end. And this allowed folks to customize the business logic of Shopify. So let's kind of get into that, because one of the most common questions I get here is, wasn't this already available? Why did we do this? We already had Shopify scripts. We loved it. It was a lot of fun. And we could just use scripts for all this. It was just a handful of Ruby code. We loved it. It was fun. And yes, you can use scripts to create discounts. You could use it to customize payment methods, but it wasn't perfect. So for starters, if you weren't a Ruby developer or familiar with Ruby, it wasn't exactly that easy to get up and running with. And the second one is, it would time out at times. It was not uncommon to hear about, certain flash sales, heavy loads of traffic, and then those scripts not executing at checkout. And third was the market. The market size was only Plus developers here. So if you were running Shopify scripts, you were isolated to just Plus merchants. So it was one single programming language, small market, and it was kind of time out at times. So we want to solve this with functions. How could we go about solving this and address those three kind of pain points that we just mentioned? And if you were there for the summer editions announcements, Toby was tweeting a lot, and he kind of gave away the answer of how we solve that. And that was thanks to WebAssembly. And it was really important to make the important stuff easy and then make the other stuff extendable. So if you were like me and you heard about WebAssembly, but you never really played around with it, what is WebAssembly? So WebAssembly is a bytecode format. Compiles code into instructions. If you're familiar with Java JREs and the Java virtual machine, it's kind of like that. So And then you could run these binaries on different runtime environments, like browsers, for instance. And these browsers would then translate the instructions to machine code. Anyway, I don't want to dive too deep into WebAssembly here. It's not a WebAssembly session. But I wanted to highlight some of the benefits for it. So the first benefit is that it's going to run on multiple operating systems and architectures. Again, kind of like the Java days, you have that cross-platform capabilities. And the second one is that it's an open standard. So I'm a big open source fan. And to me, when we're building our own technologies on open source standards, it makes me think we're making the right move here. So whether it's Kubernetes or WebAssembly, I have a lot of faith in that these technologies are going to be around for a long time, and they're going to be well supported, and we're making the right decisions. So that was another big plus for me. And then after that, because it's a single binary and you're at the machine level for the code, it's going to be really, really fast with near native speed of about under 1 millisecond to run it. And the last one is they're polyglot. A lot of different languages have various support for WebAssembly. This includes C++, Rust, and AssemblyScript, and also some more kind of niche languages like Crystal and Zig. All right, so let's go back to what we were talking about earlier about the 3 limitations that we saw. And how does WebAssembly address these? So before it was just Ruby, but now we have a lot more support for various languages. Go, Rust, TypeScript, Crystal. All of a sudden, you're no longer limited to you have to learn about Ruby. Second one is timeout. And as I mentioned, one of the major benefits of WebAssembly is that cold start time. It's going to be under 1 millisecond. And also, when our engineering teams were running performance tests on this and kind of stress testing it, they saw that even at the maximum, it was going to be anywhere from like 10 to 100 times faster than scripts. So way, way faster. And the third one here that I want to mention is that with functions, you're no longer isolated to just one, to just Plus merchants. It's actually a very large market now. It's available to all stores. And so, before, if you were working with scripts and you had to do, and the way you deploy it also is going to be completely different now. So say you were working with one merchant and you had your script, and it was just on that one merchant store, maybe, and another merchant now wanted a similar functionality. You had to go and copy and paste that code into that new merchant store, customize it a little bit, and you would tell the merchant, please never alter this code as we don't want it to break. And then you'd have to call them up whenever they wanted to do a small change to that. That's a story I've heard before a dozen times. But the way that functions are now packaged and deployed is going to be very different. They're just going to be like any other app. You're going to be able to put it up on the App Store or publish it as a custom app, only for Plus stores. But if it's a public app, it's going to be available to all stores. So again, the whole deployment, the way that you're deploying these apps that have function capabilities is going to be completely different. And that's something that I think should excite a lot of developers because it's a completely new way of generating revenue for these sort of things. All right, and one last point I wanted to also mention about functions, and this Dion also mentioned in his keynote, is that merchants are in the admin all day long, 24/7, his words. And we want artifacts that are created with functions to be fully integrated and seamlessly integrated into the Shopify admin. So you can see here I included a screenshot of 2 different discounts, one created out of the box and another one created with functions. You can't really tell the difference. There's one little indicator. I'll give it away later in the presentation. All right. And another benefit of this, though, is actually when you're pooling the data together, and you run an analytics report, you'll be able to see the data from both the discounts that you're getting out of the box and the discounts that you're getting with functions. Okay, so I've talked a lot about discounts, but I want to emphasize that functions are not just for discounts. So yes, you can create discounts, and there's various types of discounts you can create. Go into that in the next slide. But I also want to say that you can customize your payment methods, and that's coming out soon, very soon. And then you can also customize your shipping. And you can also customize order routing. And when I talk to the dev teams, they foresee dozens of entry points that you can customize. So not just these 3, not just order routing, but dozens. Expect this to be the way to customize Shopify backend logic now, going forward. All right, so the types of discounts you can create. Again, you can kind of create whatever discount you like, but the ones that we've seen are volume-based, which is what we're going to be doing in the workshop later on. I think in about 45 minutes, so I'm going to have a workshop about this topic. So please come there if you want to create a volume-based discount using functions. The second one is a BOGO discount. Third, I've seen folks with gift with purchase discount created. And before you take that picture, I'll put up the fourth one, tier discounts. There you go. All right, so let's dive in. We've talked a lot about kind of like why we built it, how we built it, and what you can build with it. Let's kind of dive in and kind of simulate how would you actually, hands-on keyboard-ish, build a function. All right, so really quickly we'll talk about the goal. I want to build a function that gives me 20% off if I order 2 or more of an item. All right, so 10% off actually. Sorry, if I have 2 or more of an item in my cart, I want to see that discount at checkout or even at the cart. All right, so the first thing I want to say is we got to create an app. That's pretty much the first step of every workshop of this Unite stop so far. And we're going to be creating an app with the Shopify CLI version 3. That's the new one that just came out a few months ago, so make sure you're using that one. And here what you can see is a typical Node.js app. It's got all the fun little Node.js artifacts like your yarn.lock file and the package.json, front-end folder, and an index for your backend. All right, so once you've cloned that app, that starter template, now you want to create an extension. And to do that, you want to run the yarn generate extension and then specify the kind of extension that you want to make. So you can have an order discount or a product discount. In this case here, we're going to do a product discount. So it's specific to just one product. And when you run this command, there's actually a few options. And I used the Rust option. You can do a Rust option or a bring your own WebAssembly binary option. Again, I chose the Rust one. And there's 2 folders that are 2 files that I would like to talk about that are populated in the extension folder. So you'll get an extension folder, and that's where you're going to get a bunch of templated files. And then there's 2 files I want to talk about, the input.graphql and the main.rs. And the input.graphql specifies the input to the function, and the main.rs is going to be creating the output. So a function, just like its name would dictate, you want to get the same output given the same input every time. So you have some sort of input, you always want to get the same output at the end. All right, let's take a look at what kind of things you can input into your cart. And again, this is just one little example. If you Google shopify.dev function API, you're going to see all the different things you can manipulate and have as input into your function. So for starters here, this input here, first line here is the cart, and that's exactly what it sounds like. It's the cart at checkout. And then after that, we have the lines, and that's the line items in your cart. And then after that, you're going to have the quantity of each ID. So the product variant ID is going to be the product that is in the cart, and then you're going to have the quantity of it. All right, and the last thing, there we go. And the last thing at the bottom there that I wanted to mention is the configuration that is applied at checkout, though. So you can see here, I put a little comment in there, and this is just some configuration that is shoved into a meta field. And it's exactly what I mentioned at the beginning of this. I want to create a function that gives me a 10% off if I have 2 or more items in a cart. So with this, I should be able to now write a little bit of Rust, get all the data that I need from my input from the cart input, and then apply the configuration that you can see in the meta field value. So that's what I want to do. All right, so now that I know what I want to do, I have all my input. We can now take a look at the main.rs file to create our function. Now I've kind of trimmed this down a little bit, and I'm going to try and hand wave some of this because it's a lot of code up here, even after I trimmed it down. But there's a few things I wanted to just call out really quickly, and I apologize, the lines are not perfectly lined up here. But the first one here is that what you're basically going to be doing is getting the configuration, that's in the first line there, that little JSON blob. And then afterward, you're just kind of getting the line items, and then you're just creating a new array. Pretty minimal stuff so far. And then after that, you're going to go through each line item in the cart, and then you're going to see the quantity. If the quantity of that line item is greater than the one in the configuration, so if you have 3 or 4 of a t-shirt in a cart, then you want to add it to the array, add that product to the array. And then after that, to finalize your call, you want to apply a discount. So if you look at the config.percentage, you can now apply a discount to each and everything in that array that you've kind of pushed onto it. And at the end, you should now have a function built, and now you want to compile it to WebAssembly. So to compile it to WebAssembly, from the top level, you can run the yarn build command. This is just going to call whatever you have defined in your extension config file. By default, if you go the Rust route, it's going to call the cargo wazi build command. If you are bringing in your own WebAssembly binaries, you're going to have to override that command with something else. So there's different ones for C++ or assembly script. But what this does is it's going to now push the binary, which is generated, in the target folder. It's going to be produced locally, and then it's going to, after that, we want to push it up to the Shopify servers. And with that, again, you can just do a yarn deploy. And this is uploaded to Shopify servers. You don't have to worry about hosting it. Unlike your app, you're still hosting your app. And yes, so the function is now pushed up. There are some limitations to size requirements for the function. It has to be less than 256 kilobytes. But yeah, that's the gist of it here is now you can access this at checkout, and it's on Shopify's infrastructure. It's really fast, and that's why we want it uploaded to Shopify. All right. So like I said, functions are deployed with apps now. So with an app, you're typically building your user interface out of React. So each type of function that we've GA'd so far, just the discounts one, includes a set of React components that you can install, that you can then leverage in your app when you're building it. So for instance, there's one about, you can see here the usage limits card, which includes, maybe you want to limit how many times someone can use this discount. And the second one is, can this be combined with shipping or with payment methods? And lastly, you want to specify when this discount is enabled. Say you want it from the beginning of October to the end of October. You can do that. And there's also, like I said there, that's probably about a dozen, if I'm seeing the slide correctly, it's about a dozen different React components. There's more than that. That's just what I could comfortably fit on the slide. These are all open source, and anyone can use them in their app. All right, so let's test it out. I've built out my front end, tweaked my back end a little bit, and I made my function. How would it look like once I've built it? So this is what it would look like. I want to zoom in on one specific part right here. You can see here, I want to configure it. So now any merchant, this is the admin interface. They can now go and create it and configure it however they want. So you've created the app that allows them to now configure it. So if I'm a merchant, I want to go in there, and I want to say, yep, I want to create a new discount. It's going to be an automatic discount applied at checkout. I'm going to give it a fancy title, super awesome discount. And these are the config options that I now have. Minimum quantity and the type of discount. It can be percentage-based or a straight dollar amount. I went with the percentage-based one. And once you've created it, it should now be in your discount section, again, in the admin. And I mentioned that there is one little indicator that kind of gives it away that you've created a custom discount. And that is because on the little drop down there under type, you're going to see that it's powered by and then the app developer name. All right, so we saw how it looks in the admin, in your coded editor. How's it going to look at checkout? At checkout, it should look like this. I kind of zoomed in and highlighted. You're not going to have this big ugly green square box checkout, but yeah. So if you have 2 or more items in a cart, you'll see a little tag pop up, and it's going to say Super Unite discount, 10% off, $50 off of a $500 order. It all checks out. And we'll be building this same app, again, like I mentioned, in the workshop today in about 45 minutes, and again tomorrow at 10 a.m. So if you're interested, come check it out. All right, so in reality, you're going to probably stumble the first few times that you make this. So you need to know how to debug it. So what are some of the common debugging steps you can take? So from within the partner dashboard, as long as you're running the function on a dev store, not a production store, but on a dev store, you should now be able to see both the input and output of your function. So your input is going to be all the various fields that you're inputting there, and the output is going to be the type of discount that you're going to be getting. And this is just a first step in improving the developer experience. This just came out, I think, a week and a half ago, so it wasn't even there for the London Unite stop. All right, so like I said, there are some restrictions to the apps that are to your functions that you can create. Let's take a look at them. So the first one here is that the WebAssembly binary must be less than 256 kilobytes. That is a size limit that the product team has imposed for now. They want to, be as small as possible to start with. This unfortunately does kind of limit language that you can use to pretty much C, C++, Rust, Zig, and assembly script. Secondly, functions must execute in under 5 milliseconds. Again, this is at checkout. We want it to be really fast. So speed is of importance here, so it has to execute in under 5 milliseconds. Sorry. And secondly, it must be deterministic. Like I said, you want the same output given the same input. You want it to happen every time. You want it to be very simple. So that does mean that you shouldn't be trying to use like a clock or a date function in your library, or you shouldn't have to use like a random number generator, because those are non-deterministic. So don't depend on those. And the last one is the access to the file system. Again, for security reasons, we're not going to be allowing folks to be writing and to rewriting to the file system that's running the functions. And I think that's pretty reasonable. All right, so adoption so far. It's only been a few weeks since functions came out, and since we did the first stop in London a few weeks ago. And it's been pretty good so far. It's been pretty encouraging numbers. I want to share a few with you all. All right. So far over 250 partners have created at least one function. And we're seeing about 90 plus functions created every week. And these are very encouraging signs. The percentage change week to week is only growing. And I'm excited to see what kind of functions everyone creates. We're talking to partners every day about what languages they're using and what type of discounts they're creating. And it's all really cool and unique use cases. So I'm very excited to see how this all pans out over the next few months. All right. So what can we do next? So at this point, I hope I've convinced you that functions are awesome and you should all be building them right now. If you'd like to get your hands dirty, like I said, we're running a workshop in about 30 minutes or so. If you'd like to come there, I encourage you to come there. We'll try it out. I'll make sure personally that you get through that workshop and you have a function that you can now build off of. Secondly, check out the docs. There's a lot more information than what I could put in this talk right here. There's a ton more information on shopify.dev. Go there. And third, I encourage you to check out the GitHub repo, github.com/shopify/function-examples. There's at least a handful of various examples in there. I think there's about 4 or 5 different examples, all doing various discount types. I think there's even some for payment methods as well. And these are all open source. Look at them, check them out, use it to build your next awesome app. All right. That's my social details over there and my email. You can get in contact with me if you'd like. And now I'm going to open it up to some Q&A. But before that, they've been asking us to put this up every slide. So please, feedback is a gift. If you'd like more information, if you'd like to give some feedback here, scan the QR code. It's here for you.